Seut remained as a deity in Egypt even after withdrawal of Serbian conquerors. Poets from the court of Pharaoh Amenhotep II, they compare him with the god of war Ceuta. The Greeks called Ceuta Typhon, although their Typhon does not fully correspond to Ceuta. Herodotus says that Typhon is hiding in the lake Serbon, but that Serbian lake is one narrow bay at the coast of Palestine. In the old days, that bay was very dangerous for passers who were not familiar with those areas. The bay was deep and with steep shores, and the wind floated on the surface of the water, so that the water could not be seen. One Serbian army was killed there while returning from the attack on Egypt, and that is why the bay, which they called the lake, got its name Serbonian Lake. It seems really strange that the Greeks believed that god Seut was hiding in a lake It seems strange that Greeks believed that in that lake was hidden god Seut, whom they called Typhon. Even after Serbian withdrawal, Seut remained as a great deity in Egypt under the name Set. He was considered an opponent of Osiris. Herodotus says that Osiris is the same deity as Bak. Since the Jews came to Egypt as Serbian allies, they adopted the god Seut as their deity and offered him the offerings until the laws of Moses. They offered oxen to god Seut, so the story of the golden calf is related to that custom. The Serbian emperors from the 3rd century BC, with the capital in Skadar, her name was Teuta. Several kings and emperors bear the name of Teut or Teutash. The 2 kings of Assyria also bear the name of god Teut, Emperor Teutam and his successor Teutai. Teutam was the 20th emperor of Assyria in a row, and he sent military aid to the Trojan emperor Priam during the Trojan War. As we have seen before, the Greeks called the god Ceuta Typhon, which is in fact Teut in the role of god of war, but Teut himself, as the supreme god, was not renamed, but simply adopted as Theos. Bohardius and Isaac Vossius believed that Teut had the role of a god of time, and his name gave rise to the German word for time, Zeit, as well as old word for time in English, tide. The god Teut was both the protector of merchants and travelers. When he appeared in this role, the Greeks called him Hermes and the Romans Mercury. In Kicker he mentioned in 2 ways, Toit and as Teut, and in Lacantius as Teutus and as Tot. Teut had a role of white god, a benevolent and creative deity who always appears as protector of the people, rulers, warriors, travelers, etc. Bohardius says that Teut was called Belbog. Belenus vel belin, idem qui belus. Let us mention another of the great old Serbian gods. It is the god who has most likely the first, oldest deity. All other gods are called giants, and Div is a special name for all of them. Bergman says that the supreme god among the gods, after Teutavaruna, was Div, which he sees in Scythians on Dnieper and Dniester. It is a deity who embodies the light of heaven and the beauty of the sky and splendor and ecstasy of the universe. The great deity who the giant that is original. The giant appears everywhere where there were Serbs in Europe and Asia. Bergman says Div means the one who is great, and that is the original meaning with which from the beginning they marked the sky. The Hindus, Indian Aryans, adapted this name according to the melody of Divus, the plural of Divas, the Greek of Zeus, the plural of Divs. Latins on Deus, Deu Pater is Heaven Father, Jupiter, and Scythians on Thebe. Herodotus gives the Scythian names of all Scythian deities with their Greek comparisons, but does not give the name of Diva, which is only his comparator Zeus. The Scythians and their descendants have preserved for a long time of all the Japhetic peoples the name Div in their original form, and only later, undoubtedly in the 3rd century AD, the southern Germans, with their speech fell under Celtic influence, changed the name Div to Ziu. The great Perun, who has less significance in ancient times and only later becomes one of the great gods, also appears among the Aryans in Asia. In India it is called Perajanya, a title which was later added to Indra. Let us mention that the white horse was a symbol of the sun god, because the old Serbs believed in that the sun rides in the sky on a white horse. The sunny white horse was called horse, and that name is present in the medieval Serbian language as well as in Russian. The horse is sometimes represented with chariots and sometimes with wings. Horse is found in Media and Persia under the same or slightly changed name. Waddell says, the Persians had a sun god named Horus, just like Egyptian Horus. It is the sun god, a warrior leader on horseback depicted killing a snake. In Christianity, it is Saint George. From this, we conclude that Egyptian Horus is the same as Serbian horse. So it is consistent that it was brought to Egypt in a time of the Hyksos. Among the Serbian tribes of Asia Minor and among the Aryans in India, the mythical king Mane is mentioned as the first ruler and legislator. There was also a legend in Egypt about the king Manes, or Maron, as Diodorus says, who built a tomb in the form of a labyrinth. According to this labyrinth, Daedalus built one for King Minos on Crete. Diodorus says that the ruins of the labyrinth in Egypt still existed in his time. Another sun deity, Mithras, is equally found among Serbs in Europe and Asia. Mitra was the great prince in Persia, but also among the Serbs on Balkan Peninsula, so that even today we have 2 cities in his name, 2 Mitrovicas. What we have said briefly about the Serbian Divonia is enough to see that its unity with the beliefs of the Aryans in Asia and to support the truths about the Serbian origin of the people they call Aryan. The Serbian Divonia is very extensive and one of the oldest in the world. As certain parts of Serbian people were displaced in distant lands, over time they acquired special features, changed their language and became so different that one can no longer speak of one people. We can rather talk about Serbian race, Slavs, since national unity no longer exists. It also contributes to branching and spreading of the Serbian Divonia. When we take into account that it was very rich in all parts of the world and that each tribe had its own tribal customs, it is better to understand the difficulties of navigating through that abundance of various giants, divs, fairies and werewolves. For example, Bergman states that only near the Geats on the lower Danube in the 1st century BC there were names for 400 stars. There were cases when a deity completely changed his role and from good over time became evil, that is, he moved from the camp of the white god to the camp of the black god. Such cases are especially known among Asian Serbs. By mixing with other people, the language and the name have changed, so now we only have a few original names. Though this linguistic mixture, the Sanskrit language emerged, which is very different from original, such as the language of the Serbs when they came to Asia. In addition to Asia, Serbon conquered North Africa and Europe, and after conquering East, he conquered the West. Diodorus left us a story about Serbon's campaign in the West. He says that Serbon gathered considerable equipment and a lot of soldiers in that campaign. He brought and gathered army to Crete out of gratitude to Cretans who respected him a lot. Serbon was accompanied by his nephew Iola, who accompanied him on all expeditions. Crete was chosen as a starting point because the island was an important naval stronghold with a powerful navy. The expedition to the west was exclusively to the countries around Mediterranean Sea and first to Egypt.